5,000 miles away, Ronald Liversedge and the Canadians in Spain have their own unit, the Mackenzie Papineau Battalion, or MacPaps. And by 1937, they are being crushed.
4 months of stubborn retreat without let-up, against an enemy whose superiority in weapons rated over us 10-1. We were all changed. Even facial expressions seemed to be nursing unwelcome thoughts.
Half the Canadians who go to Spain die in the field. The survivors swear they will fight to the end, but the end is nearer than they know. Hitler and Stalin have signed a secret deal. The Soviets will sacrifice Spain. The MacPaps are sent home.
Left alone on the sidewalk, across from the CPR depot, the place where I'd started my journey into Spain from a little under 2 years ago, I thought, well, Ron, home from the wars, but with no home to go to.
With fascists ruling Spain, Italy, and Germany, democratic leaders now fear world war. Hitler is advancing, and no one knows where he will stop. Few are more concerned at the prospect of war than Mackenzie King.
I wondered whether I would have the strength to continue at the head of a government, or whether the government would last any time, as it was certain that Canada would immediately become a divided dominion.
King travels to Berlin. His mission, to convince Hitler to cease his military aggression. The Nazis put on a display of fascist splendor. King tells Hitler that Canada will stand at Britain's side in the event of war. But privately, King is very taken with Hitler, as he records in his diary.
He smiled very pleasantly, and indeed had more of a sort of appealing and affectionate look. His face is much more prepossessing than his picture would give the impression of. It is not that of a fiery, overstrained nature, but a calm, passive man, deeply and thoughtfully in earnest. His skin is smooth. His face did not present lines of fatigue or weariness. His eyes impressed me most of all. There was a liquid quality about them which indicated keen perception and profound sympathy.
King is not alone. After meeting the Führer, a top-ranking British diplomat compares him to Mahatma Gandhi. American Ambassador Joseph Kennedy calls Hitler a man you can trust. In 1938, Hitler unveils the face of Nazism for all the world to see. He orders an all-out attack on Jews in Germany. Kristallnacht, called Crystal Night because of the thousands of panes of broken glass from Jewish homes and businesses that litter Germany's streets. Senator Karine Wilson is one of the few non-Jews lobbying for the refugees. 2 weeks after Kristallnacht, she calls a meeting with the Prime Minister.
The growing intensity of the persecutions and sufferings of thousands of these unhappy people constitutes a great challenge to the reality of our humanitarianism. Our loyalty to our democratic principles makes it imperative that we render what help we can in this urgent situation.
King shunts her over to the real architect of immigration policy, a bureaucrat named Frederick Blair. Blair is extremely proud of his record. Canada has allowed in fewer Jewish refugees than any other Commonwealth country.
I often think that it would be far better if we told them more frankly why many of them are unpopular. If they would divest themselves of certain of their habits, I'm sure they could be just as popular in Canada as our Scandinavians.
Word is getting out that Wilson is one of the last hopes for refugees trying to get into Canada. Her desk is flooded with letters. The Stein family of Vienna writes to their cousins in Montreal that their business has been shut down and they are forbidden to earn a living. They are homeless, stateless, and penniless. Particularly affected are the 2 children, a 9-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl.
Our distress increases daily, and there is nothing left for us but suicide. Our only hope for survival is admission to Canada.
The Steins are rejected. Wilson now believes Blair's bigotry is standing between life and death. But Blair is unmoved by her pleas.
All the complaints Mrs. Wilson brings to me are about Jews. Jews make any kind of promise to get the door open, but never cease their agitation until they get the whole lot.
Wilson feels she has no choice but to lower her sights. She begs King to force Blair to let in 1,000 refugees. Wilson is unaware that Blair is not her only obstacle. She has no idea that Mackenzie King has bought all the land around Kingsmere, his country house, so that no Jew can move near him. Nor does she know his real views about refugees, a secret he shares with his diary.
We must seek to keep this part of the continent free from unrest, and from too great an intermixture of foreign strains of blood.
Finally, Wilson settles on a proposal that King agrees to approve. 100 Jewish orphans. But Blair invents more hurdles, and in the end, only 2 of the children make it to Canada. The Ottawa Journal calls Corrine Wilson the mother of lost causes. Canada will go on to have one of the worst records of Jewish refugee resettlement in the world. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. King receives reports from the great beyond that there is nothing to worry about. In a séance, his father tells him,
Hitler has been shot by a Pole.
at the same moment King is communing with the spirits, Britain is declaring war against Germany. One week later, Canada too declares war. Most people, including Prime Minister Mackenzie King, believe Canada's role can be limited, and King promises he won't impose conscription for overseas fighting.
I held to the language that Britain was at war, and if attacked, we should take means of defense, and should not go beyond the defense of Canada at present.
A limited war seems possible in the autumn of 1939, a period called the Phony War because fighting has come to a temporary halt. For now, enlistment remains voluntary, and French and English alike begin to sign up. In St. Hyacinthe, Quebec, there are 5 fewer mouths to feed at the Duhamel table. Irene Duhamel's brothers are all soldiers now. She is about to begin her adult life as the wife of Georges Graveline, a handsome Montrealer who woos her with books. But once again, her life is altered when the phone rings.
He called and I feared it was because he was going to join the army. I said, but we're supposed to marry. The damn fool said, do you understand that it's a job? It's deliverance.
The phony war comes to an abrupt and terrifying end on May 10th, 1940. King realizes his dreams of a limited war have ended too.
Fellow Canadians, the brutal domination of Holland, the tragic invasion of Belgium, the surrender of France, the capture of the Channel ports, has happened in such quick succession that the world has hardly had time to breathe. One crisis has not passed before another has arisen in its place. Peril has been heaped upon peril. Who will say On what new horizon destruction may not loom tomorrow.
For 5 days in May of 1940, the outlook is dire. Germany controls most of Europe, and many believe that if Britain puts down her guns, Hitler will spare her. King and Britain's new leader do not like one another. King complains about Winston Churchill's habit of drinking champagne in the war room. Churchill refers to Canada's Prime Minister as the little son of a bitch, but they will be forced into a history-making alliance. Churchill is facing tremendous pressure to surrender. Even U.S. President Roosevelt feels Britain might have to capitulate. Roosevelt calls his friend Mackenzie King and asks him to pass on the message to Churchill. King admires Roosevelt, but he despises Roosevelt's message.
It seems that the United States was seeking to save itself at the expense of Britain, that the British might have to go down. I instinctively revolted against such a thought. My reaction was that I would rather die.
King feels he has no choice but to relay the message. He is galvanized by Churchill's response.
We shall never surrender. And if this island, or a large part of it, were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old.
Churchill carries the day. There will no longer be any talk of surrender, nor will there be any question of Canada's role. With France under occupation and the Americans still on the sidelines, Canada is now Britain's leading ally. Only a few months before, King had tried to limit Canada's commitment, but now he orders a national registration for home defense. Ronald Liversedge is now too old to go to war. At 40, he gets his first job in a decade, building warships in Vancouver's boatyards. Dr. Norman Bethune, Canada's most vocal anti-fascist, won't be enlisting either. He is in China taking care of Mao's troops. He dies there in 1939, a hero to millions of Chinese. James Gray is prepared to leave his family and a job he loves and join the troops. But when he goes to enlist, the doctor recognizes him from the Dole lines.
He said, "Jimmy Gray, what the hell are you doing in this man's army at your age with your TB history? Get the hell out of here and don't come back."
Over the next year, 200,000 Canadians will volunteer to fight in Europe. The Prime Minister commands factories to begin 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week production of war supplies. Canada is finally back to work. The Depression has been ended, not by any far-reaching economic policy, but by a European dictator.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know where.
Irene Duhamel goes to the train station to say goodbye to Georges Graveline. She is one of a million women who have no idea if they will ever again see their loved ones.
Keep smiling through.
And Irene Duhamel knows that if he does return, her fiancé will be a different man, coming home to a different country.
Drive the dark clouds.